Liberty North, AP Psych. Good morning. So it is Thursday, May 7th. And we are going to finish the entire AP Rockhurst College Psychology, Psych 140, whatever curriculum today. So this is it. With just a couple days to spare. So again, remember, no live streams tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, so work day, take the day off, whatever you need to do. Again, in this class, you have all your assignments listed in Canvas under the Psych Disorder, Psych Treatment section link, and that includes your final, which I'm already having students turn in. So I think I've got some students that are just about, I think, are done with everything at this point. So work at your own pace. You have till Tuesday to get that stuff in. Seniors, your last full week of K through 12 education is almost over. So it has been an awesome journey. It's been a great year. I miss incredibly that I didn't get to finish it out. My classes were amazing this year. You guys were just awesome. It was just fun. It was a delight every day to teach you. You guys made learning fun, and you're exceptional students, and people. So it's hard to believe it's kind of over, but this is it right here. This side of the chart is basically the last part, remaining information from chapter 17. Again, we already covered chapter 18, social psych. We did that one earlier. So then you'll have all of your charts done, so you can submit both of your charts as well. And it's done. So AP testers, I know, good luck. Monday, I know AP Gov's a big one on Monday. And then, of course, I am continuing my AP review sessions in the afternoons. So with my art test takers, I'll be doing one today, and then I'll do those as well. And I'll check in with everybody on Monday with a live stream just to make sure we're good and if there are any questions. Okay. All right. If you want to get out your chart, we're going to talk about the biomedical side, biomedical treatments. Okay. So this was psychotherapy, which we did yesterday, which I took a picture of and sent it on Twitter. Today, we're going to do the biomedical side. Okay, so it's important to remember this is first, always. Okay, so we always try to take care of anything with mental illness or psych disorders or psychological issues with therapy first. And we do have plenty of research, plenty of scientific data, brain imaging to show that this does actually heal the brain if it's done correctly. Okay, so all right, so if this doesn't work, we've got three sections here. So 1, 2, and 3. So 3 types, if you will, of biomedical treatments. All right, so I'll go over them, and then I'll do a close up. So biomedical, up here it says, okay, brain, biology, physiological treatments of mental illness. All right, and mainly that's going to be the brain. Okay, so mainly we're going to basically alter brain chemistry. We're going to change brain chemistry. That's generally what we're doing, is we're treating the brain at the biological level. Okay, all right. So the first one is medication. Okay, and then I'll go over all 6, and then I'll give you a close-up of all 6 at once. Okay, so basically I've got the little 6 little dots and 6 of the main types of medication that we use. We have talked about several of these already back in chapter 2, again in chapter 14. So we've hit some of these before, but these are kind of the main categories of psychotropic, okay, psychiatric medication that are used. So we have anti-anxiety medications, which I put up here, and I just put those are the most prescribed medications in our country. All right, so again, I think anxiety or an anxiety component is still the most diagnosed mental illness, psych disorder in our country. Depression is very close. And again, remember, anxiety and depression are very, very related at the brain level, the neuron level, okay, the neurochemical level. So these two are actually pretty related here. So we have anti-anxiety medications that basically try to increase or decrease certain neurotransmitters that are involved in a very strong, sensitive anxiety physical response, okay? We also have antidepressants. which are, I have SSRIs here, which we have talked a lot about. And again, these are used interchangeably. So if I have anxiety, I can be prescribed an antidepressant. Actually, that's very common. And if I'm depressed, I can be prescribed an anti-anxiety. So because again, they work biochemically pretty much on serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Okay. And generally they're trying to increase all of those if they can. So my most popular prescribed ones, so Zoloft, I think I just looked at this last week. Zoloft, Prozac, and Lexapro are still the top three, the first three that are usually used, all of which are SSRIs. So they increase serotonin by blocking reuptake. Okay, so selective serotonin reuptake, remember that inhibitor? All right, and so these are going to be pills that I take or medication that I take every day, and that gradually over time change my brain chemistry. So they're not the type of medication that are going to give you an immediate effect, although that's possible. But generally 2 weeks, I think Lexapro is the one that works the fastest. 2 weeks to a month, you're going to start to feel it kind of build up over time, and then hopefully change your biological response to anxiety, which is not working probably correctly. Okay. All right, then the next one we have, which actually were the first medications ever created for psychiatric use, and these are antipsychotics, and they were created in the 1950s. So I have first over there. So these actually started what we call the psychopharmacological drug revolution, or the psychotropic drug revolution in the 1950s. So again, you have to remember in the 1950s, prior to that, we had no good treatment for psychosis except for surgery, lobotomizing people, cutting out a certain part or separating a certain part of the brain or damaging it. That was all we had as a successful treatment for psychosis. And obviously that came with a whole bunch of side effects and so on and so forth. So with the invention of antipsychotics, all of that kind of went away, which was huge. So now we actually had a medication in which we could treat psychosis, which was huge. And again, these types of medications continue to evolve over time. Again, we've talked about that there's a specific antipsychotic now for Parkinson's. So they continue to evolve, and it's just a much better treatment. Now it's not perfect, but it's still better than lobotomizing people, damaging the brain permanently in a large area, right? So these were huge in the 1950s. So those were the first type of medications dedicated to treating mental disorders, okay, or mental illness, okay? The next one we have are called mood stabilizers, all right? And these are pretty much specifically to treat bipolar, right? So mania, depression, back and forth, right? And these medications do exactly what they say. They stabilize your mood. So now what it does, though, is it forces your brain and locks you into a certain range of mood to keep you from going to the different poles. Now that can obviously have some side effects as well. But I think these are a lot of the medications that you see that are based on psychiatry and psychology that are advertised on TV are a type of mood stabilizer, because they talk a lot about bipolar depression and so on and so forth. Okay. All right. So they lock us in there, and generally they're salts at the base. So it's lithium, Depakote, were some of the older ones that were used, but they really work biochemically. And I think, to be honest, I don't think that psychiatrists are completely, or psychology as a field is completely sure how these work, but we know that they just lock you into a certain mood range, and you don't biologically move out of that, okay? We have tranquilizers, okay, which are Xanax, Valium, all right? And these are kind of short-term medications. They do work very quickly, last about 4 to 6 hours. But again, they work on the bell curve philosophy. So they build up, and then they plateau, and then they start to decrease. So, these are different. You're kind of building up or changing brain chemistry slowly over time. These change it pretty quickly, generally by increasing GABA, which is our most sedentary neurotransmitter that we have. So, but these are mainly used to, again, help people with panic attacks, the panic disorders. So they can take a Xanax when they feel a panic attack coming on, or if they're going to go into a situation that it's going to be panic evoking, they can go ahead and take the medication to help them. So again, those of you who've had surgery, these medications are kind of like the medication that just kind of makes you feel like everything's okay at the end. Now you're getting that through IV in a very high dose compared to this. But Xanax can be, 0.25 milligrams, 0.5 milligrams, and that's a pretty good dose. So anything 1 and above is an extreme dose. So you're getting that through an IV. So you're getting a very magnified effect of that, but that's what that does. Okay. So, it just allows you to basically keeps that parasympathetic on and doesn't allow sympathetic nervous system to ignite or to activate. So I don't go into that massive physical response to anxiety. And lastly is a group of medications that were actually created for something else. So they're called antiseizure medications, and they were developed mainly to treat epilepsy, which they do a very good job of. But we can also use them for anxiety because they actually increase GABA in the brain. But they do it slowly over time, like these medications. So this will be a medication that you're taking every day to build up GABA. And what we know is that if you build up GABA, that actually sedates the brain a little bit, so it's less likely to go into a seizure, to spark those areas of the brain that are seizing, those bundles of neurons or neural networks stay calm. But that also helps with anxiety. Okay. All right. So these are just some of the medication, and there are many more. So this is not all inclusive, but these are the ones that are kind of the big ones that the book touches on. Okay, again, our most prescribed are anti-anxiety. The historical, very first ones were antipsychotics in the 1950s. Sorry, I'm shaking. Okay. And again, I have a lot of students, who go home and check their medication, and you can read it and see what it is. And, I have had a lot of students again who come back and say, they're giving me an antidepressant to treat my anxiety. And that is perfectly, that's pretty mainstream. Most of those SSRIs that they use today are front runners to use for anxiety and depression. Okay, so anti-anxiety, antidepressants, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, tranquilizers, and anti-seizure medication. Okay. All right, so unfortunately, if we get to the case where therapy doesn't work, medication doesn't work, then we have a few other alternatives. However, and I looked at a study a couple of weeks ago, and it was another study that was showing the brain. It was one of those categorizing the brain. So they, and several people did journal critiques on this, but they took patients who were in cognitive behavioral therapy or some type of cognitive behavioral therapy, and they were tracking to see how fast the brain healed. And then those same patients who were receiving therapy and on medication, it was healing, just on medication, how it was feeling. And then they had a placebo group of how fast they were healing. And the group that healed the fastest was the group that was therapy and medication together. Okay. So again, we can see the brain heal. We can see it get back to normal rhythm, to normal activation in certain structures. So it's very interesting studies. But if we get to that point and we're still not getting any relief, any help with a mental illness psych disorder, then we can go down to number 2, which is an evolving science and has come a long way. But that is brain stimulation. So the idea here is pretty much just like a pacemaker for your heart. We're gonna find and isolate the parts of the brain that are sick, that are not functioning correctly, that are maybe firing inappropriately or at wrong levels. And what we're going to do is we're going to stimulate, send small electrical currents to that area of the brain. Okay. And generally, we're going to implant an electrode, a device just like a pacemaker. And instead of the device connected to my heart, I'm going to connect it, run wires up, and I'm going to connect it to parts of my brain. Okay. So, they have vagus nerve stimulators for depression. They have a new one for anxiety, which is more in kind of the temporal lobe area. But what they do is they can scan the brain and see in the patient's brain the areas that are contributing to their symptoms. And then what they can do is attach an electrode there and stimulate that area to where it's delivering the right amount of neurotransmitters and firing the right levels, has the right action potential, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the first one of these, which has changed quite a bit, which some of you might have seen, is ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. And actually, before that, I believe it was insulin shock therapy. But basically, what we're going to do here is electrodes on either side, and we're going to deliver an electrical current, which is going to create a seizure. Okay, so both with electroconvulsive therapy and the precursor to that, insulin shock therapy, the whole goal is to create a seizure, to have the brain seize in a safe, controlled environment. And then after the seizure, the brain, again, starts a new rhythm. So it's kind of like an AED is really what it is. So again, if I go into cardiac arrest, shock the heart, and then hopefully it starts beating again at a healthier rhythm. And that's really what we're doing here. We're shocking the brain as a whole area here. This one's not specified to a specific structure or spot because, again, this is the older version. And this is not done near as much today. It's actually pretty rare because we can do these things, which are much healthier. There were side effects with ECT. So if I just deliver, a jolt of electricity to your entire brain and then you seize, and then afterwards, hopefully, it's in a healthier rhythm and a healthier place, okay? But this came along around, insulin shock therapy was right around the same time as antipsychotics. So, we're looking for ways to get away from surgery. So the antipsychotics come up, ECT comes up, insulin shock therapy is up. Now, what we have done today is we've developed more specific, more healthy, if you will. Some people call this pretty barbaric if you watch it. So these are kind of be ways that we can stimulate the brain in specific areas and not the whole brain, and that we don't actually have to create a seizure, because seizures can be dangerous. Now, this is more of a medically induced controlled seizure here, but still not fun, not a very fun experience at all, and has side effects. So the first one we kind of developed, which was transcranial magnetic stimulation, which basically means we're going to use magnetic waves and pulses to stimulate parts of the brain. So if you remember back to chapter 5 and 6, when we did the temporal lobe stimulation and they sat in the dark and wore the motorcycle helmet, and then they could control what parts of the brain they were hitting with these magnetic waves or pulses, and then they would experience paranormal phenomenon. Well, that kind of led to this, and there's huge growth in this to treat the auditory hallucinations in schizophrenic patients. Now, it's not permanent. It lasts about 3 to 6 months, and they have to go back. But the good thing about this is you can walk into the office and they can hit your brain with these magnetic pulses, and you don't have a seizure. There's nothing. There's just loud noises. I think you have to wear earplugs. It clicks really loud, but they just hold this wand over the area of the brain that they want to hit with these pulses, and then they deliver the pulses. And then you get up and you can go right back to work or whatever you're doing. And then there's been great relief given to psychotic patients with auditory hallucinations. So it stops the voices. So that's pretty cool. And they're hoping that they can then advance this and move it to other disorders as well, because this one's right now it's very clean. There's very little side effects. There's very little negativity to this treatment at all, which we're hoping stays, and we can then use it for others, okay? So this one I'm going to use magnetic pulses, magnetic fields, and really pulse them towards one specific structure, okay? And then we have deep brain stimulation, which actually has been around for a while. It's just becoming more and more of a medical art, if you will. And so what this is basically I'm going to identify the part of the brain, the very small part of the brain that's malfunctioning, and I'm going to drill in to that area, and then I'm going to implant an electrode just to that area, and then implant the electrical device. So again, this is the example for the pacemaker, right? So I'm going to have a pacemaker for my brain. That's deep brain stimulation. So the idea is to attach it, and then have a generator that just delivers a small, mild electrical stimulation. And again, once it's in the chest and connected, you can adjust it. So you can go back to your doctor and say, I'm not really feeling much relief. They can turn it up, they can turn it down, whatever they need to do. And that changes the stimulation. Again, great success here for things like Parkinson's, so neurological disorders, but also depression. That would probably be a big area here in which they're really patients who can't get help with therapy medication, and still might be suicidal, they can do this and it gets great relief. Okay, so this is delivering a huge shock to the entire brain, creating a seizure. This is magnetic fields, no seizure, just bomb specific parts of the brain with the magnetic fields. And then this one is a very specific structure in the brain. I can just deliver an electrode to that continually gets stimulation over and over. Okay. All right. And then lastly, we have, I'll show you the close up of this one. Sorry. Okay, BCT, TMS, and DBS. A lot of letters. Okay, and then one thing that we did not get to do in class is, usually I end class with watching the movie A Beautiful Mind, which is a great true story about John Nash, one of the most brilliant mathematicians the world has ever seen. And he had paranoid schizophrenia. And he actually got insulin shock therapy. So it actually shows that in the movie, and we kind of walk through it. And you can see it then. So they basically flood the body with insulin, which creates a seizure. They have a controlled seizure. They're in the presence of the nurses and the doctors, and then the seizure goes away and they wake up. And again, you have a new brain rhythm, if you will, and they can continue to do that. But it was very barbaric. You can look at it. It definitely would be something you would not want to do. You would choose one of these two, right? Probably most people would choose this one if it would work, okay? All right, the last one and the last step, the last tool that we have kind of in our toolbox, which is above all the last resort, which is psychosurgery, okay? Psychosurgery, right? Now, the goal of psychosurgery is that we're going to go in and we're going to remove a part of the brain, we're going to separate a part of the brain, or we're going to damage a part of the brain that's not working. So again, it started with lobotomies early on before the 1950s. So the very famous frontal lobotomy, which basically means we would open up the head, the skull, we'd access the brain, and we would separate the frontal lobe from the rest of the brain. Okay, so kind of if you remember Phineas Gage, kind of had a lobotomy because again his left frontal lobe was blown out by the rod, so he kind of had a frontal lobotomy there during the accident. Okay, unfortunately the side effects were worse than what they were looking for. Okay. So obviously this is not going to be done very much at all, because even with our science today, we can damage a very small part of the brain. We don't have to damage or remove or separate huge parts of the brain. However, if you remember, so we talked about split brain surgery, right? So severe epilepsy where nothing else works, they can go in there and cut the corpus callosum, separating the two hemispheres of the brain. And that generally gets rid of the seizures, okay? We also studied the girl who had a hemispherectomy, right? She had her right hemisphere removed because of Rasmussen syndrome. So, those are huge examples, very rare, but that would be kind of what we're talking about, okay? So it says damaging part of the brain to bring healing relief from psych symptoms, okay? Now, the best example of this today is called the probe. Right. And what's going to happen there is we're going to drill a hole in the head. We're going to find the part of the brain that's not working. And we're going to fit this long probe. Okay, it's like a straw. And we're going to stick it into the brain. And then what's going to happen is we're going to lesion or burn the part of the brain that's not working. So we're going to damage it. We're going to burn it. And then we're going to pull the probe out, cover you back up, and then you're on your way. So there are some famous examples of this with Parkinson's. So patients can be tremoring. They can find the part of the brain that's not tremoring, that's causing the tremoring, that very small part, navigate that probe down there and damage that part, burn it, lesion it, and then pull it out, and then the seizures stop. Or not seizures, the tremors stop. Okay. Now, it's not permanent because we don't have a permanent cure for Parkinson's or our neurological disorders. They're progressive. Okay. But it does slow it down. So that's kind of what we would do now. So we're not going to open up somebody's head and take out or separate a huge part of the brain or remove it unless it's those rare disorders like we've talked about, or diseases. Here, we're just pretty much going to find the part of the brain that's not working correctly, And if medication is not working, therapy is not working, stimulation is not working, then we'll have to go in and just damage that part of the brain, burn it, and then pull the probe out. Okay, and hope that that does it. Okay, so I'll show you this. Okay. All right. So to summarize, basically we have 4 types of treatment, right? We have psychotherapy, and then we have medication, brain stimulation, and psychosurgery. Okay. So those are kind of the 4 big areas in our toolbox that we can do. And of course, those are growing. New treatments are being developed. A lot of new treatments are actually under scientific research right now, hoping that we can just offer more ways and more help to people. But again, what we want is the ones that basically bring relief and help with little side effects, which is what we want. And TMS, the magnetic stimulation, is a huge, huge one. And then there are others like, what is it called, where they put you in the oxygen chamber, hyperbaric oxygen chamber. We have a hyperbaric oxygen center here in Kansas City. Some people believe that bombarding the brain with pure oxygen at deep levels can help the brain. And so they're working on studies with that as well. So trying many different things, but the whole goal is to, again, bring help and relief, healing to people who are dealing with mental illness or mental disorders. Okay. All right. Any questions? Ta-da. We're done. That's it. We have covered chapters 1 through 18, pages 1 to 787. Okay. We have covered everything that's in that textbook, everything that's on the AP curriculum and on the Rockhurst dual credit curriculum. I think it's Psych 140. So if you have any questions, email me, let me know. And then I will check in. We'll still live stream on Monday. I'll check in to see if there are any major questions about assignments. But again, go to a Canvas, go to that assignment link. And then again, your final, all your projects, all the assignments are due on Tuesday the 12th, which will be seniors' last day. And then Wednesday, juniors will live stream, and I'll kind of go over your last assignment, which will be fun, that you'll be working on independently for the last week or so. Okay. All right. Any questions? Oh, got one. Sorry. Allie, sorry. Good question. Thank you, Allie. So on your psych disorder chart, maybe that's what I'll do Monday. I can help you. I'll go through that. I actually have people that, so the treatment side, we said we were going to go back through and fill that in. I'm going to grade. You don't have to have that side of the chart filled in for the grade. So once you just have what we have covered in class, you can go ahead and send it to me, submit it to me. But then my hope was that you could fill that out yourself. But then probably Monday, I'm going to go over that just real quickly. I'll run down that. But again, you can turn it in without it. I'm not going to grade the treatment side of it, of the chart. So you don't need to fill that out. We'll do that on Monday. You can turn it in without it. And you can even go ahead and try to do, I've had some students that actually kind of filled it out on their own, just parts that they've known, and that's fine. I mean, I see it, I look at it, but that's not part of your grade. So thank you, Allie. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, and then remember the first, second, and sixth hour, you just need to share one doc with me. So make sure students that you find the student that's sharing the doc, go on it and just make an addition to the doc. So I know second hour is Alyssa, and that's the only one I've got shared with me so far, I think. So make sure you find the one person, contribute to the doc, and then I'll grade those on the 12th. So for your final. Okay. All right. Enjoy the nice weather. It's a beautiful day out. I think it's going to get rainy later. And seniors, enjoy your last weekend and your last Friday. So take care. If you have any questions, email me, contact me, let me know. Miss you guys.